Hello everyone. So I recently made a big Holbein purchase at Jackson's during their Holbein sale. I've been getting really into gouache lately, and I decided to go ahead and kind of develop a palette for myself. Um, yeah, I was really inspired by the seasonal palettes that Holbein had come out with, their Iridori series, and I really liked the winter palette. I know that a lot of people think it's a pretty limiting color arrangement, but I was really drawn to it because I loved the sort of contrast between the muted colors and the more bright colors like the peony and the russet green and the patina. And I just thought that there was a potential to build something out of that. But I noticed that if you bought the 12 set, it was actually more than if you purchased the colors individually during the sale. And also, there was a few colors I didn't really want and I wanted to replace. So I kind of like went through a process where I looked at all of these swatches and I sort of decided to remove some colors and put some different ones in from some different color seasons. But essentially, I ended up with a 13 color palette that looks like this. And this is put in a different order from what the Iridori set comes in. But basically, the ones that I kept were the crimson, the peony, the patina, the russet green, the red oxide, and then the other ones I've replaced different colors. So instead of the Ryoku gray, I put in this ash blue. I switched out the geisha blue for the Myosotis blue from the spring series. I switched out the hummingbird blue for the indigo. I added this pine tree green because I wanted something that was more in between the bluer tone and the yellower tone green. I added yellow ochre because I find that to be a really good mixing color. I also added the Amur Cork green or Amur Cork yellow, because I thought that would be a really useful color for mixing. And then instead of the dark brown and the russet brown, I replaced those with bark brown and smoked bamboo. So it's actually 13 colors, and a few of them have been swapped out, but I feel like this is a more versatile palette for me. And then besides that, I picked up the mixing set. So it comes with the primary cyan, the primary magenta, and the primary yellow, and then the primary white and the primary black. So that was on sale for a really good price, and I decided it'd probably be worthwhile to pick that up just to have those for like more brighter colors and a sort of more standard mixing palette. And because I have very little self-control, I also decided to get some other mixing colors. So I also got the I couldn't really decide which of these yellows I wanted more, so I decided to get both of them. The Gardenia yellow from the summer and the Kerria Japonica yellow from the spring. And then I also picked up the Safflower red from, I think this is from the summer, and the Ultramarine, also from summer. So in the end, I have a pretty good selection of all of the different seasons. A lot of this is Iridori, and then just the mixing set is their sort of standard artist gouache. And I also got this 24 watercolor palette with the removable pans. I've wanted one of these for a long time, but I didn't really have a good reason to buy one. But now that I have all this gouache, it is a perfect opportunity to use it. And I like that I can sort of try to put it in the order I think I'll like it in, but I like that I can remove colors, create a more limited palette, and sort of like remove distractions if I want to just work with specific colors, or swap them around in different order. And then I also have, this is some gouache that I had previously. So I have a Winsor Newton mixing set that has Mars Black, Zinc White, Lemon, oh, sorry, that's not part of it. Lemon Yellow, Spectrum Red, and Ultramarine. And then I had a few other just random gouaches from other periods of time. that I've bought them. So I have Linden Green and Winsor and Newton, and then I also have Daler Rowney Turquoise and Purple Lake. Yeah, I don't know. I bought those like a long time ago when I was just looking at colors and nothing else. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is start distilling all of this gouache into these palettes, and I'm probably going to do like a pretty thin layer because I think I want it to dry slowly. So what I'm planning on doing is putting this inside actually like a Masterson Stay Wet palette. I'm not going to close the palette all the way so it's completely sealed. I'm just going to like sort of loosely fit the lid on a little bit so that air can still flow into it, but that it's not drying out super fast, because I just want to hopefully make it so that it doesn't crack really badly. It doesn't bother me when gouache cracks. I have this other Arteza gouache set that I created, and I made the palettes and the pans myself from the 60 set. I chose like a limited palette for this, and this is also based on their Earth Tones palette. I just adapted it a little bit, but it's not that bad. Like, it cracked, but it's still perfectly functional. And once you like re-wet it a couple of times, it sort of smooths out. So I don't really mind the cracks, but I just don't want it to get like really, really cracked. The other thing is I did add a few drops of the, what was it? Gum Arabic. And I think I read now that you're supposed to use blending medium, but the gum Arabic seemed, to help a bit with cracking. The other palette that I have for gouache is I have this like Meeden palette. This is a ceramic palette, and this has a mixture of Arteza and Meeden gouache colors in it. And I didn't mix any blending mediums or anything with these, and these have been sitting here for more than a week, and like they're actually quite fine. Like, they're not moving around. Some of them are a little bit more crumbly. I think yellows and browns tend to be a little bit more crumbly, but like most of them are holding up pretty well. So yeah, anyways. So I'm gonna switch the view here, and then we're gonna start filling these palettes. Okay, so what I've done is I've just removed all of the pans, or loosened them up so that I can fill them and you can watch them more closely. Yeah, so I'm just gonna start doing this and enjoy. So I think I'm gonna start with a not crazy amount, and then I'm just gonna give it a bit of a swirl with a toothpick just to sort of level it out a bit and make it so that it's not in these big tubes. So funny, I stayed at a hotel in Austria last year, and they gave us these little toothpicks, this pack of toothpicks, and they're like the best toothpicks for stirring paint. I only have 2 of them left. I try to like use them over and over again, but sometimes they break. So now this is going to be my second last one. So as I'm stirring, I'm just sort of like trying to smooth it out a little bit and get rid of any air pockets or air bubbles that might be in the paint that would cause it to maybe crack a little bit more. And I decided I'm not going to add the gum Arabic to this paint because I did read on the package that it increases transparency, and I was like, oh, that's probably not what I want for gouache. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it. So after I'm done stirring it, I just sort of like twirl off the extra onto the edge there. And yeah, I'm going to pop that back in. Or I'm not going to pop it in. I'm just going to let it sit there. All right, so this is what the paint is looking like now that I've given it a bit of a stir and gotten it all into its pans. There's something so juicy and inspiring about looking at paint in pans. It just really makes me want to paint something. But unfortunately, I have to wait a little bit for this to dry. So I'll just be using fresh paint until then. Yeah, this is the other side. Some of those greens and blues looking super, super amazing. Some of these were quite a bit thicker than others. The yellow ochre, the ultramarine. I don't know if that's going to be related to its opacity, but we will check that out when we do swatches. All right, so now that all my Holbein pans are filled, I'm gonna open up these extra pans and just pop in the extra gouache that I have into these. And yeah, so put your back on time lapse. Okay, I got my swatch sheet all set up. I'm just using Canson XL watercolor. I miscalculated my measurements for these swatches, so black is not going to fit onto this page, but that's fine. I think we all know what black looks like. I'll do it another time. All the other cool colors are going to make it onto this swatch chart, and I just set it up with the names and a black line so that you can see opacity. And I'm just gonna go through, put a dot on, swipe it around, and then afterwards I'm gonna mix each color with white and add like a line of white so that I can record for myself what it looks like when it has been lightened. So here we go. All right, now here's a close-up of the painted swatches, and you can see how the white impacts the color. Some of them, it doesn't really affect it at all, which is a bit strange. That could have been me not mixing enough white into the color. For example, on this Kerria Japonica yellow, the white doesn't really seem to have that big of an impact. Maybe it makes it a little bit more opaque. I wonder if that's because that color already has white in it. Another thing I noticed while I was painting out the white is, like, I really struggled with some of the colors. They were really sticky and really dry. I had to add a tiny bit of water, which I thought was going to impact the opacity, but thankfully now that they've dried, I'm noticing that, you know, the water didn't really like thin out the white all that much. And so that's good to know. The swatches also dried quite a bit lighter with the white paint than it got painted on to the swatch. So when I was painting it, I was like, oh, this isn't having any impact at all. That's weird. But yeah, now that I'm seeing them dry, I'm realizing it actually does have an impact. You just have to be patient and wait for it to dry. Just something to be aware of as you're using these paints. I was kind of surprised by the light ochre because ochre usually is a naturally opaque color, and it was quite thick. So it could be that I just used a little too much water when I was brushing out the swatch and it got thinned down a bit. But even with white, it's not super opaque. They do have another color that's not in the Iridori range, it's just in the regular range, called yellow ochre. So maybe that one is more opaque. I don't know. By the way, I forgot to mention this ash blue is not part of the Iridori range. It's also just part of the regular artist gouache range. Super beautiful though. I also wanted to show what this paint looks like with any reflectivity or sort of, yeah, just glossiness that might be coming from natural light. So as I move down, you can see there is a sort of slight sheen on these swatches. And keep in mind, these are painted in the mass tone. And yeah, so that may have an impact. Some of them seem a little bit more matte than others. The white definitely has an impact on the glossiness, but just in case that's a concern to you, it's not a concern for me. But some people really like extremely, extremely matte things. This seems to be on the slightly shiny side of matte, if I had to say. But yeah, it's still quite beautiful. And I did do a check with my overhead light, which is like a daylight light, just to see if it had any impact on the swatches. And I didn't notice any reflections when I turned on the light, but I'm pretty sure that this gouache will be fine underneath a scanner. I don't think you're going to see any unwanted reflections on it. But of course, that's just something you'll have to decide for yourself if it's okay for you. All right, in the time it took me to create that series of videos for Holbein gouache, which was about 2.5 hours, I made a pot of coffee, I left it downstairs, it got cold, I went downstairs, I poured a cup, I reheated it, I left it in the microwave, and now I've just gone downstairs and reheated it for a second time. So I hope you appreciate all of the lost coffee drinking that I have sacrificed for you to create this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. I've learned a lot about this product and I'm really looking forward to starting to create with it. So I hope you have a great day and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.